Here we go, everybody. Welcome. This is the DC Cybersecurity Professionals Meetup Group. I am Tyrone Wilson. Today, I am joined by Lynn No, who will be discussing biohacking with you all. Today, we're super excited to have Lynn out today, and we're just going to keep it short. I'm going to let you do your thing, Lynn, and I'll turn it over to you. We're happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
First and foremost, to anybody that's here, apparently it's not the same time everywhere. I didn't know that. I know I'm terrible. Just wanted to say first and foremost, thank you guys for really giving me the opportunity to come out and do this. I've got a really interesting presentation for you guys today, so I think you're going to find it really enjoyable. Let me just get my deck set up here. I accidentally hit the wrong button, and let's go ahead and let's kick this off. I know you guys have been waiting long enough, so again, apologies for not coming in on time. Can everybody see the screen okay? We good? Tyrone?
Yeah, I said I can just see you right now. No screen.
All right,
yet.
that's fine. Yeah, let me make sure I got the right screen share going. So share my screen. All right, so let's see, share. Is it coming up yet?
Yes, I can definitely see that.
All right, cool. Awesome. All right, sorry about that. So, excuse me, no COVID here. Plus, we're virtual, it's all safe. So, yes, this talk is actually called Biohackers, the Invisible Threat. My name is Len No. I am a technical evangelist and a white hat hacker for CyberArk software. I'm also an international global security speaker, been with CyberArk for coming up on 9 years. I have been presented live at major conferences all over the world, including up to, I think I'm at a total of about 33 different countries. I've been in IT professionally for over 25 years in roles ranging from programmers to system architect. I've been breaking into computers since the Commodore 64 days and spent a really large amount of time in my youth as a black hat or a gray hat hacker. I am professionally trained as well as I come by a lot of my knowledge through practical application. I am really active on social media. Invite everybody here to reach out over LinkedIn and check out my GitHub and my YouTube channels if you're looking for some more security related content. So I wanted to start out today by asking everybody here a very simple question. What does a cyborg look like? When you hear the word cyborg, what comes to your mind? Maybe a Terminator, Star Wars, Star Trek. Everybody who knows the definition will probably have a vision in their head. And I'd be willing to bet that it's pretty shiny and probably to some extent robotic looking. Well, I hate to pop the bubble for you, but that's just not the case. Cyborgs are not only on the movie screens anymore, they walk among us, and you may be friends with one and don't even know it. These are my hands. I'm a biohacker in the truest sense of the word. I'm not only an augmented human with microchips in my hands, but I'm also, like I said, a white hat hacker. I'm a hacker that has modified my body to take advantage of the available technology to turn myself into the attack vector. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an explanation on the current chips that I have, as well as give you some roadmap of what I'm looking to do to continue on my journey to become more than human. So like I said, if you take a look at the x-rays, these are my hands. So the first one is I have a very large microchip called a Flex Next. This is a long-range NFC RFID chip. I actually have a Next chip. This is actually a BioGlass encapsulated NFC RFID. It's the same as the actual Flex Next. The only major difference is the fact that the range on it is much different. The BioGlass gives me maybe about a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of distance between my hand and the reader. The Flex Next can get me up to 2.5 inches, so much greater distance in terms of readability. I have what is called a Flex M1 Magic. This is the chip that allows me to emulate any number of older access cards, from public transit, membership tokens, physical access. I have a VivoKey Spark 2. This is a crypto bionic chip that can perform strong cryptographic functions. Currently, there's an app companion with it, and I use it as a multi-factor to open up my cryptocurrency wallets. Since the time these x-rays were taken, I've actually had a couple of more additional implants. I have what's called a Flex EM. This allows me to emulate most of the popular physical access cards, including the Prox 1, 2, and 3, HID, and Dala, Pyramid, and just a ton more. And finally, I have a Titan biomagnet. So this is actually a magnet that actually allows me to feel electromagnetic currents. And if you guys want to take a look at the camera here, you can actually see I actually have the top of my lighter, and it just kind of sits there on the end of my finger. So it does have a little bit of lifting capability, but not much. It's more designed to allow me, when I get in close proximity to electromagnetic fields or electromagnetic current, I can actually feel that. And what that allows me to do is, from a physical penetration testing perspective, if you have a magnetic maglock for your industrial doors, I can actually run my hands over the outside of your building, and I can actually feel where the wiring is, which can give me better options in terms of where to try and shim those particular types of locks. Additionally, I am working on negotiations to safely encapsulate a peg leg, which we will be discussing just a little bit later within this talk. So, as I said, augmented humans are not science fiction. We're here, we're not going to go anywhere, and as the technology continues to evolve, so will we. So I've broken today's talk into 3 separate parts: yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the history of who we were, just enough to show that the biohacker or transhuman is just the point where science, technology, and humanity have all collided. The idea behind implanting technology inside the human body has been around since the 1950s. You know, the patent for the first cardiac pacemaker was made in 1952, and it was actually the size of a table radio. You know, this was not a fully implantable solution and required leads to be connected to an external power source. With the advent of the transistor in the mid-1950s, the ability to construct fully implantable devices was achieved in May of 1958. The first implantable technology was actually placed inside of a test animal. It was a pig. The first human to receive an electrical implanted device in the body was actually in Buffalo, New York in 1960. The tech up to this point was very static and didn't allow for much in the way of conditional executions or modifications from the original programming. 1964 gave host to the first implantable technology that could take data and feedback from the body itself. The 1970s and 80s, there were advancements, but nothing that was really going to, just blow up the world as far as technology. 1990 is when things really started to look up for the implant community, from the creation of smart devices all the way through to today, where the discussions of artificial intelligence are actually pretty commonplace. For biohackers, our history was forged by the medical profession to address deficiencies of the human body from a reactive perspective. And by that, I mean that the issues were already there, and there was no options for an individual to enhance themselves through the use of any type of technology. So who are we today? People like myself are referred to by many, many different names: biohacker, grinder, transhuman. Regardless of what name you want to put on us, we all share the same concept of moving beyond the human form that we were born into. Actually, the term transhuman was first actually coined by a gentleman by the name of Julian Huxley back in 1957. And the movement he created was fueled by multiple people looking to extend the capabilities of the human body. These devices were designed to make people's lives easier. We have the ability to start our vehicles with implants. Imagine never losing your keys again. Or how many people may have a fob for a gym or a shared garage or a storage unit? All of these would be considered legitimate use cases for one of these types of devices. What about being able to pay for goods and services without having to worry about a wallet, utilizing the same technologies as Apple Pay or Android Wallet? These are all current use cases, and these are all commercially grade implants that you can actually purchase today. Unfortunately, Not everybody out there is friendly. And as cybersecurity professionals, we know this. As professionals, we need to start looking beyond what we're comfortable with, beyond the normal attacks that we've heard about for years and years and years. The attacks in the end game may not have changed, but our delivery methods and our attack vectors are coming right off of the movie screens and into our companies, infrastructures, and data centers. Security administrators know the normal attack vectors, USB drives, phishing, CVEs. The list goes on and on and on and on. But how do you address the fact that any one of your employees could potentially have a full Linux system to RFID or NFC chips beneath their skin? What if somebody implanted an HID or a proximity access card? They would be able to compromise physical locations, and there would be zero evidence of any type of IOCs to the naked eye. Chip implants use the same technologies that enterprise are using. RFID door badges, NFC for IoT, MyFair HID and proximity cards for physical access. And these are just a few of the examples that are actually out there. And with the number of regulations and audits that, companies are required to do for compliance, how would you know if somebody has bypassed your security policy and brought a rogue asset into your environment? The very simple answer is that you wouldn't. The peg leg is a single board computer that has been modified to a minimalist form factor with a wireless charging receiver and then encased in biopolymer and implanted in the body, typically in the upper leg to thigh area, right behind one of the pockets. So that way you can take a external battery pack that has an indirect charging port on it, stick it in your pocket, and you can actually power the device. This is actually out on the outer edge of extreme, even for most biohackers or transhumans. This is not a simple process, and making sure that your Raspberry Pi Zero is completely sealed. This has actually caused a number of individuals that have attempted this implant to require emergency removal surgery. This still doesn't stop a ton more, including myself, from actually trying to get one of these things implanted. I'm currently actually in negotiations and working with a commercial grade implant manufacturer based out of Seattle, Washington, to actually get me 4 of these devices correctly bio-encapsulated. So that way I can actually have one of these implanted in my leg. And my hopes are to have one of these in myself by the end of Q3 2022. So, think about it. If you have a Linux computer, they do make Kali for Raspberry Pi. So, the possibilities for a concealed Linux system are only limited by the implantee's imagination. This originally was intended to act as a logless file transfer drop. It's based off of the Pirate Box project. However, as with anything that's in the technology space, people took that simple idea and they branched it out into very, in my opinion, what would be more creative, or I've actually been told more devious areas based on your perspective. Full Kali distributions have been implanted. These devices are headless, but have a Wi-Fi access point configured to allow access to the implanted device. Once connected, the attacker actually has terminal access for interactive processes, simply by connecting to the internal Wi-Fi and the access point within the device. Once connected, the attacker has access to, he can be able to perform non-interactive scans like auto-pwn, sweeps for low-energy Bluetooth that can be utilized for attacks like Blueborn. Or, working with conjunction with a USB share application like Virtual Here. An attacker could execute mouse jacking attacks and inject automated payloads with tools like Jacket, all while standing and having a casual conversation or sitting at their desks. Excuse me. These devices, as I said, they have Wi-Fi as well as Bluetooth capabilities and can be accessed over SSH from any mobile device. This would allow any bad actor to have access to binaries or even something as widely known as responder. They can be made into rogue access points for man in the middle, and they can be used for command and control servers as well. The total number of peg leg implants that are actually out there in the wild is not really widely known because this was a community-based project. However, the fact that there's at least one individual that has this ability That should be more than enough, to cause security administrators to take notice. So let's take a moment to think about this. How, as a security professional, can you regulate secure locations on-prem if people have the ability to conceal full computers within their body? This becomes even a greater challenge for companies and governmental agencies who may require elevated clearance for access to physical locations. This essentially removes the power and the control from the security authority by obfuscating systems that could be leveraged for nefarious purposes. So, I think I've done enough, just kind of talking. Everybody here wants to see, what can be done with this. So let's get right into a couple of attacks. I debuted these attacks last year at RSA, but due to the COVID pandemic, a lot of the dissemination of this information really hasn't gotten out there. So we're going to go over it. And I think you guys are going to find this really, really crazy. So we're going to show you two attacks today. Both of them are going to be around the near field communication. So a little background, basically NFC is a technology that most of us have in our pockets right now. Pretty much every Android device that's been made within the last couple of years has full access to transmit or receive NFC data. For all of you Apple people out there, I'm going to give you a little bit more of a complicated answer. It's a little bit more difficult to explain. So if you are on iOS, with iOS 11, under iPhone 7 and 8 and X, they can be used to read NFC tags. iPhone 6 and 6S can be used to make NFC payments with Apple Pay, but has no ability to read standalone tags. Apple at this time only allows NFC tags to be read via apps. There's no native support for the OS and native reads like you do with Android. So I can almost hear all of the iPhone people out there cheering. You'll get a pass on this one for now. But just keep in mind that I know for a fact that Apple is currently in litigations in Europe over the proprietarism of the NFC chip. So we don't know what's going to happen, but there's a good chance that iPhones may fall victim and susceptible to this attack vector as well. So like I just stated, standard NFC utilization can be almost anything from beaming a file to a coworker or a friend, using your phone as a key fob or an app to transmit a signal to a receiver to allow some action to take place. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is going to be the same for basically all of the demonstrations that I'm going to be showing you today. When we're dealing in NFC, remember that NFC gets its power from the receiver, not from the chip. There is no internal power required to be able to keep a tag loaded in a waiting state. So just so that you're aware of which implant I'm going to be using, the first one that we're going to be using for this first attack is going to be the FlexNex, which is the large, I don't know if y'all can see it out there, but let me try and get my wrist in the right way. So yeah, there you go. I actually have, it's about the size of a silver dollar and just floats right there in the top of the palm of my hand. So today, the first attack we're going to be discussing today is one that I lovingly named Leprosy. So this attack may or may not always work because just like with any other types of attacks, there are a few conditions that we need to be able to meet as far as prerequisites in order for the attack to be able to execute properly. First and foremost, NFC must be enabled on the device. Number two, allow apps from unknown source must be enabled, or I need to have the phone in my physical hands long enough for me to be able to go through the rigmarole and actually try and get it installed. So at this point, it's just a matter of social engineering, a situation where I can get my hands physically on your device. Again, I know I hear it all the time. I never let my phone out of my sight. That's fine. I don't need your phone out of your sight. This attack, as well as the next one that I'm going to show you, which is called Fleshhook, are designed to be performed in plain sight and actually standing right next to my targets. I don't think it would be a large stretch to assume that if we all were in the exact same location physically and I was to make a huge scene, about something going on with my wife, maybe my daughter, maybe one of my granddaughters. And I was making a big scene and, screaming, crying, pleading. Somebody would be there to help me make a call. I have no doubt, just from my ability as a social engineer, I know the Good Samaritan in someone would love to stand up there and be my victim. We all have this built-in inane sense to try and avoid conflict, as well as not wanting to be viewed by our peers as uncaring. As a hacker, I know this, and I will do everything in my power to take advantage of that. Once the phone or tablet is in my hands, the receiver in the device will pick up the tag that I have programmed in my hand that's pointing to a web location containing an infected APK that was created with MSF Venom. If you're not familiar with MSF Venom, it's the part of the Metasploit framework, and it's used to create connections back to the command and control server. So I've got the device in my hands. The chip has prompted to either install or save the file. I go through the motions of what appears to be making a phone call. What I'm actually doing is loading that APK and then quickly returning the device back to your hands. This attack will produce persistence as well as a hidden icon so that the owner would not even know anything was out of the ordinary. And additionally, if they go through their applications list, they're not going to find anything. So let's take this before I show you the actual example. Let's amp this up just a little bit more. What if this was a work phone? What if this was your device that you do your banking with? In this scenario, I'm already in your phone before I've even left the room. From my command and control server, I can gain access to your contacts, emails, photos, downloads, essentially anything that's on that device. So let's go ahead and let's show you what this looks like in real life. I am a very, forthcoming and transparent researcher. So before I go into the actual example, I'm going to explain to you the setup of what you're looking at. I use Parrot. We have a dual terminal running in Tilix. The top section, you'll see this is my ngrok for use for obfuscation. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up Metasploit, and I'm going to show you guys how this works. So let's go ahead and let's kick it off. Excuse me. As I said, first thing, we've got our ngrok tunnel running for obfuscation. I'm going to go ahead and launch Metasploit, and I'm going to just load a resource file that just has all of my standard settings in it and go ahead and pop a listener. At this point, all I need to do, and I'm going to do this in real time. Oh my God, I can't find my, something's going on with my family. Somebody please help me. Oh, thank you for letting me see your phone. Thank you. I just need to make a phone call. God, what is my wife's phone number? We all use nothing but, oh God, it's in my contacts, but my phone's dead. I don't know. Shoot, what's my phone number? 73461. I'm such an idiot. She just said something happened to my granddaughter. 1734. Oh shoot. You know what? I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm just going to plug my phone in, and I can't remember the number. Look at what's going on in my interpreter screen on the back. I've already popped the shell. We can do pretty much any of our standard post-exploit type activities, dumping call logs, dumping SMS, dumping contacts. We're also going to actually pop a shell and actually navigate through the actual file structure of the storage. So I have complete compromise on this system at this point. And this entire attack was initiated just by allowing me the ability to touch your phone and having that NFC turned on. So I'm going to let that sink in for just a half a second. Yeah, this is why I tell people, don't loan anyone your phone. I mean, to be honest, most of my closest friends and family, if I walk into the house, they'll actually either shut their phones off, turn off their Bluetooth, turn off their Wi-Fi, turn off their data. Is that a little bit too much? Maybe. I don't know. So that was our first actual attack use case. The next one that I'm going to show you is one that I've lovingly named Fleshhook. In this case, I've programmed the chip in my hand. Same one. It's that Flex Next. It's that very large antennaed NFC RFID chip. I programmed that chip in my hand to point to a very specific website that's been compromised with the Beef suite. And again, if you're not familiar with Beef, this is the browser exploit, the browser exploit extension framework, or I may have those back but reverse, but it's essentially the website that hooks the browsers of any devices that connects to that and allows for remote code execution as well as persistence. Through Beef, the attacker can enumerate the local LAN the device is connected to, as well as execute advanced phishing attacks executed on the device itself. Again, requires just a little bit of social engineering, but just like I just showed you, that's really not a problem in today's society. What makes this attack exponentially more dangerous than Leprosy is that there's really no need to install anything. Along with the fact that most mobile devices have some type of web browser pre-installed, NFC and a web browser are the only requirements for this attack. Remember, NFC can be used to do all kinds of different things. One of them is to push a URL shortcut or a quick link. So again, starting off within Tilix on my Parrot box. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually just launch the Beef suite. If you've never used it, I definitely recommend it. It's an amazing tool. Honestly, one of my favorites. Gives us a nice little web UI GUI to log into. So we're going to go ahead and open up the Beef control panel. From here, we just go ahead and authenticate. And once we get in here, you'll see that we have two headings, one for online browsers and one for offline browsers. Again, all I need is the ability to gain physical access to your phone. I can social engineer any particular option. In this case, I've made a clone of the PuTTY download page. And if you look here within Beef, you'll see that right now we have a new online browser. It's already done a hardware identification that it's an Android. From here, we can go in and actually use some of the modules that are contained inside of the Beef suite. Let's go ahead and run a geolocation of where this device is actually physically located. I'm not going to spend too much time on post-exploitation, but just like that, on the device itself, you'll see that it says that I'm in the Texas region. Closest city is Pflugerville. It's actually pretty damn close. This is just one example. Any of the post-exploit modules that are contained within the Beef suite at this point would be open for use. Everything from network detections, recon, including up to and including full persistence, LAN enumeration, all kinds of wonderful nastiness. So this brings us to the next stage of this talk. This brings us to the future. Who will we become as technology continues to evolve? You know, when we talk about the future of implants, it's almost as if we're trying to write a new science fiction movie. Companies like Tesla are working on technology like the Neuralink, you know, a brain implant that will allow interfacing between the brain directly to a computer system. This sounds like a man in the middle scenario just waiting to happen. You know, and I'm not dogging on Tesla, but, you know, there's been some new information since I did this originally. You know, I think we're still quite a bit away. And don't quote me on this, but I want to say that they were doing some initial testing on primates, and I believe they said 8 out of 13 did not survive the procedure. So this is still something we're looking at, but I think we're not nearly as close to the finish line in regards to a usable product. There are products like the Willet. This is a Bluetooth receiver that requires no batteries, gets its power from the air. And we all know that Bluetooth is not vulnerable, right? Nobody here's ever heard of Blueborn. You know, Blueborn is one of those attacks that would reach out through low energy Bluetooth sweeps and deliberately try and continue to infect new devices. What if the human element, the augmented human, was the person that was infected with Blueborn? So now we're dealing with a computer virus that can jump from person to person. What about implantable Wi-Fi transmitters and receivers? There is a current product in development called the Neurograin. You know, they essentially are, their mission statement is the hopes to basically turn human beings into the largest Wi-Fi mesh network in the world. You know, gives a whole new meaning to the term, you know, hacking your neighbor's Wi-Fi. You know, there's actually even been, as recent as about 2 months ago, there was a medical procedure where a paralyzed individual was given a smart chip implant into the spinal column, and this individual is now ambulatory. So there's a lot going on from both the commercial sector of bioimplants. There's also medical advancements. This is just an amazing time to be alive. You know, and these are just what we know about. So currently the biggest restriction to advanced technology implants, believe it or not, is the power source. Currently, there is not an effective way to provide clean power to any devices on a commercial grade implant. You know, they do have them for medical grade type things, pacemakers, stim systems for pain. There's even, there was another one that I just read about as well. It was an internal diabetes type of an implant. I don't have all the information on it. These all have very good internal clean power sources. They're also backed by the medical industry. Commercially, it doesn't exist. You know, this is the same issue that you saw when I was talking about the peg leg, you know, several slides ago, and why we need that indirect fast charging. You know, it's not always the computer technology that needs to catch up. In this case, like I said, the only thing that's holding back progress is power. And once that's been addressed, the possibility of having access to a 24/7 embedded system within the human body, not only do I not think it's a far stretch, I think it'll happen very quickly once we actually have that power supply. So now that we get towards the end of the presentation, you know, I do like to take a minute to talk about 3 things that have come up every single time I've done this presentation. Let's take a little talk about legality, morality, and ethics around implanted technology. From a legal perspective, here within the United States, there is no federal law regarding microchip implants. There are quite a few different laws at the state level, as you can see from the graphic. The 2 major types of legislation that have been adopted are essentially, number 1, laws have been passed around microchip implants that were intentionally being pushed by an employer. So employers were trying to mandate employee microchipping for uses of time clock, attendance, any type of interaction, source of truth type ID situation. This was shot down very, very quickly. And with all due respect to those employers, I would have to 100% agree. This should not be anything that is pushed on anyone. The other type of legislation is basically a general ban on microchips, period. So as you can see from the graphic, we have 4 states that just have a straight up, you cannot get implanted. Arkansas, Missouri, Montana, and Nevada. So the strange thing is, if you live in one of those states and you want to go become a transhuman, all you got to do is just drive a state away. It's illegal to be done within those states, but not illegal to have in those states. Everything on the map that you see, and we do see quite a bit of stuff over there along the East Coast, that light blue is a banned microchip as a generality. The yellowish They introduced a general microchip ban within 2019 to 2020, and the dark orange is the ban for employee microchipping. Again, that's all happened since 2019. So taking that information, let's talk a little bit about liability from an employer's perspective. If an employee gets chipped, does that in and of itself make that employee a security risk? What if they're just using the chip to access a gym, or maybe they're using it to access their garage? Something that has nothing to do with the company, but the chip could be used in an offensive manner. Would that be something that a CISO would want to know? We all allow employees to bring personal phones to work, granted, excluding any type of restricted areas, but the detection of a phone or some other type of recording device is way more obvious. We talked a little bit about the legislation, but most of that legislation stems from a push to replace access badges with implants for physical security. This may help you from an I lost my badge perspective, but this does not enhance the security posture for a company. Remember what I said earlier, implants at this point are static. They require a reader or a power source to be able to function. So just like the attacks that I showed you earlier, bad actors could use those same tools, scrape the target's implant information, the same as if it were a physical key card. The main difference being is that you can take your key card and lock it at home when you go out drinking on Friday nights. Implants are on all of the time. If there's a receiver within range, they will read that chip. There is no off switch on them. And as such, your attackers would now potentially have 24/7 access to that physical card data that's implanted on that chip. One thing that I like to add at this particular point in the presentation when we're talking about protections, like I said, all of the chips in my hands, they're on 24 hours a day. If I don't want them to be read, I've actually had to have Faraday cloth sewn inside of gloves just to turn my own hands off. So this is kind of the iffy part at this stage of the biohacker game. So when the concept of morality and ethics come up, unfortunately, the topic of faith typically comes into play. I want to take a moment to say that I'm in no way trying to be disrespectful to any religion, faith, or ideology. I'm just going to be speaking to questions and things that I have personally heard. As I said, I'm an international speaker, and I've had discussions with people all over the world about my implants. The discussions typically go in about one of two directions. Either it's, starts off as fear from whoever's talking to me. I've been told I have the mark of the beast. I've been told that I'm being tracked by the man. I've had a couple of people ask me if, the implants and the bulges under my skin, is this what happened after I got my COVID vaccines? I've had acquaintances tell me that they are physically afraid of me due to my implants. I don't know what they're afraid of. It's almost like they think I'm going to turn into a Terminator and go on some rampage. The truth is that there are a lot more people out there like me than you could probably ever imagine. The main difference is that I don't have a problem with people knowing who and what I am. Many others like me keep their implants secret over the concern of the social stigma associated with microchipping. The other train of thought that I typically get, if it's not, oh my God, what kind of weirdo, what are you, stay away from me, is that is so freaking cool. So I don't really get much in the middles. The decision to augment oneself should, in my opinion, bear no weight in regards to issues of faith, morality, or ethics, provided that the decisions to implant is still left with the individual and not a mandate from any type of authority. Like I said earlier, not all of us are friendly, but most of us are. Finally, how far is too far? We've briefly touched on the Tesla Neuralink and the peg leg. These are two very different products with broad sweeping ramifications to the individual as well as the employers and law enforcement. I remember, and I'm going to carbon date myself right here by saying this, but I remember a movie from back in 1995 called Johnny Mnemonic, where the lead actor has a hard drive in his brain and he's using it as a storage device, as a courier for stolen data. Or let's take a look at the Matrix, where to learn some new skill set, we just load the instructions and we have that knowledge within our minds. The genie is out of the bottle, and there's no way that it's going to go back in. As technology continues to advance and improve the quality of life, we need to remember that any tool, regardless of what its original intent was, can be misused. As security professionals, we need to be aware of this and adapt our countermeasures to include these new attack vectors, or at least be aware that they exist. How do we defend against a threat if we don't even know that it's there? The fact that there is nothing at all unilateral across the board in terms of legislation, this is going to most likely wind up becoming a corporate decision on how to address microchipped employees. And without a better understanding of the technologies being discussed, these choices may be made for the wrong reasons. To say anyone with an implanted technology is an automatic threat, in my opinion, is the same as saying that any car owner could be a vehicular homicide suspect somewhere in the future. So, a couple of takeaways, things that we can do to start becoming more cognizant and aware of these types of attack vectors and what we can do. Anywhere you're dealing with contactless information and authentication, I don't care if it's NFC, I don't care if it's RFID. Audit those systems. We as security professionals know, hands down, when it comes to gaining access to privileged information or privileged resources, we multi-factor everything. Why don't we do the same thing with our physical locations, our proximity, our HID, our Indala, our PIN cards, our physical access cards? Why are we not taking NFC, access cards? Why are we not maintaining them within RFID blocking sleeve? Yes, it can. Yes, it can. The question came up, can it be used to steal information from one entity to another? Yes. I'll get into the Q&A. This is actually the last slide I've got for you guys. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of really throw at you, anywhere you're dealing with a contactless technology, do not allow for a single point of failure. If you're doing physical access, have a card reader and a PIN. Use blocking shields. Use RAC. Like I was saying, we multi-factor everything, but nobody thinks twice when it comes to having a single badge entry where you're just going to scan and go through a door. We wouldn't do that on our data centers. Why would we do it into our critical locations within our on-prem locations? So, as I was saying, in the next couple of weeks, just take a quick high-level audit and take a look, what type of contactless technologies do you have currently in use? Is there a single point of failure? Is something not multi-factored? Get those shields, get the blocking. Just some general good rules of thumbs in regards to near-field communication. By and large, this technology, if you are not currently utilizing it, don't turn it on. Leave it off, and use it when you need it, but don't if you don't. Always stay on top of your patch management. Make sure that you guys, if you see anything in terms of your tablets, your mobile devices, make sure that you have upgraded that in all of your security patches. Make sure that same is set for all of your RFID badge systems. But be aware, this is real. I've been living this way for over 2 years. And if you don't know these types of attacks exist, how can you protect against them? So it's my hope that you'll take this information and start looking around. Is this going to be your new 0 day? I don't know. I know that I'm not the only one that's doing this. I know that there are quite a few professional red teamers that have the same capability and use these during actual engagements. So with that, I will go ahead and I will bring my presentation to a close, and I will open up Q&A. But again, I wanted to first and foremost say thank you guys so much for letting me come and do this. I really appreciate the opportunity to get this message out there. And to be honest, I like freaking people out. Tyrone, you're muted, bud.
Yeah, this was very, very fascinating. My evil genius did kick in when I saw you pop a shell using MSF Venom. Also the beef. Oh man, that was pretty good as well. There's a few questions that we have that I just want to highlight. A few of them, starting with Alex, saying what happens at the metal detectors.
Funny you bring that up. I got to be cautious because I know you guys are there in the DC area, and the last thing I want to do is piss in the face of the TSA. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, don't quote me on this. I was very, very young when I worked. I did the job of the TSA before there was a TSA. Mm-hmm. It was just run by local security. And one of the things that I've known back in the day, I want to say it was the total combined metallic weight of a 38 bullet mm-hmm. is what the magnetometers are looking for. If you don't have that mm-hmm. much combined magnetic pull, you'll walk right through. Most of my implants are all silicone. Okay. So the truth is I can go through the stand-up regular archway magnetometers. I can also go through the full x-rays. There is not enough there to actually detect it. For my own safety, I do carry around paperwork that says I am a white hat hacker for a cybersecurity company, mm-hmm. and I always have paperwork that can explain it. But no, there's not enough there. I fly internationally all the time. Nobody's caught it.
Okay. Another one from WAffy. I hope I'm saying your name right. Can it be used to steal information from one entity to another?
Yeah. Very, very easily. I mean, if you think about what we're dealing with in terms of just the NFC side of things, NFC has a lot of different things that they can do. They can push, they can pull. So can I steal things? Yeah. I can do essentially anything that you could initiate from a give me 1 second, guys.
So I'm assuming it kind of serves as a man in the middle, so it's programmable from where you are.
Yes, that's exactly
right. Okay.
Yeah, so I can use it like you saw with beef. I can use it mm-hmm. to initiate a download of a file. I can send. I know for a fact that if you guys recall, there was a couple of texts that were just really screwing up Apple iPhones if you sent a specific string. Mm-hmm. So I could pre-program the chip with that. So, I mean, essentially, this is a tool that can be used for multiple disciplines. Nice. Yes, there are actual contact lenses. There are like almost bionic contact lenses out there. Unfortunately, I'm not rich enough to own one. Uh-huh. And I kind of personally, I'm kind of the guy that I like my stuff that stays inside.
Uh-huh. So one more last one. I know you showed the little silver dollar piece earlier, but was it multiple pieces or was it just one?
The large chip that I showed earlier, this is one chip. Trying to find the right angle for it. So I have one there. I have one here, right on my wrist.
What is
I have one here.
What does the scar look like for the big one? Is there a scar?
There's very little scarring. It's right there.
Okay. So they just kind of hide it under your hand
under the hair. Yeah. So, and like I said, I do have 7 different implants currently. I'm waiting for the delivery of another one. I'm surprised I didn't get the one question that I always get, which is where do you find these things? Mm-hmm. And I like to give that out. I don't get a kickback from these guys. figure everybody starts looking, how much do these cost? Everybody has a lot of questions after this.
Mm-hmm.
So I work exclusively with a company called dangerousthings.com based out of Seattle, Washington.
Uh-huh.
They actually have, if you're a Tesla driver, they actually have an implant that you can put your Tesla key in your hand, so you don't even have to worry about taking your keys anymore.
So I was thinking, like, it doesn't have to be in your hand. Like, you can hide it in the lining of your shirt, right? So you can have like a hacking long sleeve shirt.
They actually have rings.
Okay.
With like an enamel across the top with a microchip in it that you can actually wear on your finger and do the same tricks that I'm doing.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, the main point that I was trying to get across is just I'm not coming up with any new attacks. I'm coming up with a new attack vector.
Yeah.
And as professionals, if you just saw somebody walking into a room that was restricted, let's take the physical access for a second. If you see me just sitting in your data center and there's no opportunity, you didn't see anybody badge in, what's the first thing you're going to do? What are you doing here? How did you get in here? Well, the door was open. Well, I need to call the police. They can search me. They will find zero indications of compromise. It's not like the old days where if I'm going to clone your card, I have to have another card, or I have to have a Prox mark that I'm using to replay. This is where this particular attack vector becomes so dangerous, is that there's no way for you as a blue teamer or a purple teamer to know what the hell happened. Where do you start your investigation?
Yes. So that was going to be my next question, like in terms of defense for this. And in my mind, I'm just kind of wrapping my brain about just normal networks. Is there a MAC address? Is there an IP address? Is there some type of anything forensic related that could either for detection, termination?
You'll see if you get into your reader's logs, you'll see a connection. And I mean, depending if it's a physical access and I've already used a Prox mark to clone your device, your card, I'm going to have your UID.
Okay. If
it's an NFC, you might get the UID of the actual chip itself. But if that doesn't register to anything that you're aware of, it still doesn't leave you as somebody that's doing digital forensics or incident response. It does not give you much to be able to try and get somewhere and get some type of root cause analysis.
Nice.
So to answer your question, and that's why I really harp pretty hard on that multi-factor concept. If you're using just a scan and the door unlocks, you're done. And we would never do that if it was a file server and that was pay information. I would not be able to get an implant. Would it make eventually you stop playing with it and you just use it to freak out other people.
Oh man, Lynn,
but
this
use those multiple. I say this in my day job and I say it in pretty much any one of my presentations. Security is a team sport. It's a layered approach. There is no silver bullet. If you know that these types of threats exist, number one, I'd like to probably believe that none of you guys out there or ladies out there are going to be like, hey, if somebody's making a scene, I'm going to loan them my phone. Don't do that.
Right.
But also be aware that this stuff is coming. This is not going, like I said, this isn't the 0-day kind of craziness that everybody's going to, figure out over time.
Oof. Yeah, I saw that.
It's just, but these things can happen. Like I said, I can actually run my hand over your laptop and tell you where your speakers or your fan is running.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, you were talking about electrical current. Do you feel like you must obviously feel a difference, like if it's about the thunderstorm or if it's raining or the pressure outside is different?
Not so much the pressure. It's all has to do with electricity or magnetism.
Okay.
So like case in point, I live in just outside of Austin, Texas. any government position in the Army would be heavily debated for. Oh, I would definitely think that would be a very large topic of conversation. If you are a member of the U.S. military, is this an option? My guess, unless you're part of some special operations, the answer would be no, just from the standpoint that by and large, and if there's a military person here, please correct me. I'm not military. I have nothing but mad respect. But the last I heard, when you sign a military service contract, you belong to the government. You are not allowed to get tattoos, body piercings, or anything else. So I would definitely think that would be a no-no unless you had some type of permission from your commanding officers.
Indeed. Do you have any parting words for the
Yes,
people?
I do. Resistance is futile. And I'm not saying that from a Borg perspective, but from a technology perspective. This stuff is not going to stop. So be aware. If you're interested, and I do have a secondary presentation. It's not for everybody, but I really enjoyed the fact that you worked with me, Tyrone. Thank you so very much for letting me speak. I do have one more presentation that's in regards to this particular topic. If you guys would like to see it.
Sure. We'd love to have you back.
I'll warn you ahead of time. It's called How to Make a Biohacker. This is a deep dive into all of the different chips that I have, along with the surgical videos on what happens in order to create something like this and what you have to go through to become something like this.
I'm for it. I'm with it.
I will warn people prior. I've only done this talk twice. It's extremely bloody. It's extremely gory. There's dermal elevators, scalpels, blood. It's not a talk for everyone. So I have no problem doing it, provided people understand that this may not be their cup of tea and it's the correct audience.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. We'll put the disclaimer out there. We're adults. They have the option to watch or not. But it's for educational purposes, so I'm all for it.
I would love to, man.
Okay.
The only other thing I was going to ask is there any way I can get a sticker sent?
Which one? For the meetup? Oh, yeah, for you?
For DC security?
One of our stickers or one of your stickers?
Yeah. No, one of your stickers.
Oh,
yeah. One of y'all stickers and put it on my laptop.
Heck yeah. For sure.
Be my pleasure.
Yeah, we have plenty of them. Cover 6 stickers, all that. Plenty.
Is there any other questions that I can answer for anybody?
No, not at all. Was that your parting words?
Yep. If you guys are interested, and check out dangerousthings.com. The owner is a gentleman by the name of Amal Garofstra, one of the best commercial grade implant manufacturers in the United States. And they have all kinds of different implants. They're not just about NFC, RFID. They actually have thermal sensors. So if you wanted to be able to track your body temperature, they have things. Dangerousthings.com. They have like I said, if you have a Tesla, you can actually drive your car without having to worry about a key and just have an implant for a car key. This is the world that we're all moving into. But I did have one last parting question. And I've done this at every single one of my talks. Give me the world at large. We all seem to love biometrics, facial recognition, retinal scans, fingerprints. Give me a single unique identifier that proves that you are Tyrone, that can't be spoofed.
Besides my DNA?
I can do that with CRISPR. I can bypass retinal scans with contact lenses. I can bypass facial recognition with 3D printed masks. I don't know if you've noticed, but you don't see very many people in high levels of politics holding their hands up when they're talking anymore. There was somebody that about a month ago, it was a criminal who was holding a bunch of crack and heroin in his hand. We have now gotten to a point where our digital cameras are powerful enough that you can actually lift fingerprints from photographs. We have CRISPR technology. I can modify your base code DNA. I'm not saying we are, and I'm not saying we are, but I like to leave people with one of those let's think about it moving forward questions. Are we moving towards a world where we're going to have to start multifactoring our own identity? Is it going to be a microchip and a password? Is it going to be a microchip, a password, a retinal scan? I don't know. But we're something to think about. What is unique?
It's funny you brought that up because I was thinking about all the COVID tests I got. And that's technically my DNA, right? The same
Correct.
swab I would use in my mouth.
Yes.
They're using in my nostril.
Yes.
And millions and millions and millions of people around the world have done that. Where's that going?
I've questioned that since day one. I don't know. But I know that I would say probably a very large percentage of the global population has their DNA sequence mapped. And if it's not mapped, they're just waiting to map it. So if I can leave your DNA somewhere, I can lift your fingerprints from a photo. I can take a picture of your face and print a mask. I can take a picture of your eye and I can get a contact lens. How do you become your own source of truth in a zero trust world?
See, I was already skeptical about a lot of things. I was already thinking about the possible options. So I already know where my brain's going to go right now. Like nothing is impossible.
No.
Now.
No.
So it makes you wonder about imposters for political candidates and when they're in dangerous situations.
Very true.
And having stand-ins and having the DNA and the blood and everything match. So maybe Tupac is still alive.
We can hope. We can hope. We can hope.
Yeah. Okay.
But thanks again for everything.
No problem. We'd love to have you back. We'll definitely schedule something. Thanks for everyone that has joined us, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future. Thank you all once again. Have a great day.